Hello there everyone, and welcome to the Automotive Life. I'm going to start off this video by saying that no, we are actually not going to race these two cars today. You're going to be asking why? Well, they are not the same variant of car to race. This is a diesel model and that's a petrol model. So if we wanted to race them, we need both diesels or both petrol. So that's the reason why we're not going to be racing them today. Today we're going to be talking more about designs, interiors, exteriors, and how the cars drive. When I say drive, I mean things like gearbox performance, steering performance, chassis, how hard is the ride, things like that, so not really based on the engine's performance, because again, different models, completely different. This is a F30 BMW and that is a W205 Mercedes Benz C-class. This obviously is old shape. You get the new shape. The G20 just came out at the end of 2018, whereas the C-class, the W205, you can still buy it brand new, although there was a facelift of this in I think late 2018 as well. Let's start off by talking about the designs of both of them, shall we? So let's start off by talking about the BMW 3 Series. This F30 has many variants. When you buy it new or when you bought it new, you got a few different kinds of trim levels. Let me say that you got things like a modern line, a sport line, an M Sport, a luxury line. So lots of different trim levels you could choose. All those trim levels give you different wheels, different options on the inside that come standard on some but don't come standard on the other. Lots of things like that. Very technical, lots of specs to go through. I'm not really going to go through all of them. This one is the modern line. We have upgraded wheels. This car has LEDs in the front, a nice sunroof, and nice upgraded lights at the back. I don't think I can say much more. It looks, you decide if you like it or not. Most people do. It's not really a car you can hate or love. It's more neutral looking. Let's talk about the Mercedes. As for the C-Class, it goes pretty much the same as the BMW. When you buy it, lots of different trim levels. You get the classic, you get the elegance, you get the avant-garde, which this is the avant-garde, and you get the AMG trim level also. Again, different wheels, different, it works the same for both of them. The different trim levels you choose of the cars, the different looks you're going to get, the different options you're going to get as standard on the cars. Which one would I choose between these two in looks personally? It's difficult, eh? I like both of them really. Pretty good cars to look at. Okay, interior. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Let's look at the BM again first. Alright, we're in the Beamer right now, and for those of you who've been following the channel for a while, you know that I tend to dislike BMW. Well, not dislike, that's a strong word. I tend to not be the biggest fan of BMW interiors until, of course, I saw the new X5 and that was completely beautiful. This, however, it is not great in my opinion. It feels pretty cheap. I mean, there isn't really much going on. It's not really very nice to look at. It's alright, I'm not the biggest fan of it. There hasn't really been much, effort been put into making this interior stand out. It's pretty much the E90, but just like a facelift. It's not much better, to be honest with you. I do knock it, I'm not disagreeing on that, but because it's so simplistic and the fact that we are so used to it, you know where everything is. You want a button, you want to turn on the air conditioning, you know exactly where that is. Everything works very nicely, works very simply, it's very easy to use. The iDrive system is here, a few shortcuts, normal swivel wheel, and it's just, it's easy to use, it's not overcomplicated. So, pros and cons to both. I gotta say, the seats in these F30s are really not my favorite. I've sat in a few of them, and honestly, I really don't like these seats. I find them quite uncomfy, not really supportive. The older shape of this car, I felt those seats were much better than this car, to be honest with you. Legroom in this car at the back is not too bad. It's pretty much the same as the C-Class. So are both the trunks. Pretty much the same size, about 480 liters in the trunks. Let's look at the Mercedes' interior. Now we jump into the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and I've got to say, I like this interior so much more than the F30s. I really feel that this interior is really nice, from the old shape to the new shape. They really thought about design and really changed how the interior looks. I love the layout of it. It looks very nice, this fountain design. The beam doesn't really have many design cues also. I prefer the steering wheel in these cars to those also. If you upgrade to the M Sport, you actually get a different steering wheel, which is quite stupid because you can just put a nice steering wheel with all of them, which what Mercedes has done. I think on these cars you get paddle shifters as standard. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I know the BMWs, they are not standard. Even on, I've seen some 335i's that don't even have paddle shifters on those. So that's a plus for this car. But what I said about in the BMW, that simplicity is nice because you know where everything is, the same can't be said for this car, because they changed things, so they made it a little bit more difficult to use. It's not that it's difficult, it's just it's not as easy or as simple as the BMW. And we've got a control module here, normal scroll wheel thingy, and then we've got this sort of trackpad thing, which, I mean, it's a nice touch. At least they're trying something different, but I don't think it's really useful. Most people just use the normal mouse thingy to operate the systems, and obviously iDrive is better than this. The Mercedes systems are improving, they're actually pretty good now, but I still feel iDrive is simpler and easier to use. Now that's it for the interiors. Let's drive these things and see what we think. So I started off by driving the BMW F30, and you know, it's a 3 Series. They all drive great, very good cars to drive. The steering on this car is nice and light also. The suspension is nice and soft. The chassis is amazing. It moves really, really well. Obviously, as the new shapes come out, they do improve, but as this car is now, it's a very nice car to drive. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of these petrol engines. They deliver the power quite nicely, but they really sound terrible, you know? This car has a ZF 8-speed gearbox, which is fantastic. We all know about the ZF 8-speed. Most manufacturers that have 8 speeds in their cars use the ZF 8-speed. What's a downer is that on this car, it doesn't have paddle shifters. You can shift through the physical gear lever, forward and backwards, but paddle shifters just makes the car feel much nicer. I don't know how many people actually use paddle shifters in their cars, like most normal daily driver users. If you have one of these and you use your paddle shifters, let me know down in the comment section below. It'll be interesting to see. But for me, I know I actually use them quite a bit. Even normal driving, it's just more fun. You know, automatic is boring. So ZF 8-speed gearbox is fantastic. It's better than the Mercedes gearbox. The one thing with the BMWs, they've had run flat tires for quite a while. Run flat tires, they give a harder ride and they have more tire noise also. That was one thing we liked with Mercedes. They didn't have the run flats, they had a little small spare wheel, so they had normal tires. But Mercedes have also started using run flat tires on the car, so no spare wheel. But I still got to say, they still feel more refined than these cars. They have less tire noise and less wind noise in the car also. This car genuinely does not feel as refined as the Mercedes to drive, and that's not saying, oh, it's a more boring car. No, it actually feels better put together, if I can say it that way. But we can't deny that BMWs are known for being more towards you know, driver involvement and driver focus, and this car is no different. Obviously, it's nice inputs, nice movements. The car feels athletic. It doesn't feel too heavy. It feels pretty light on its feet. You know, it's a nice car to drive. That's it, you know. Let's drive the Mercedes and see what we think of that. So I've jumped into the C-Class from the BMW, and like I said, it feels a lot more refined. It's a lot quieter inside the car. There isn't as much tire noise or wind noise. It feels a lot more refined, which is a good thing. I like it. The suspension on the C-Class is a little bit softer than the BMWs also. I've heard lots of people say that, you know, Mercedes suspensions are way harder than BMWs, and I don't know what they're talking about. Generally, with the normal cars, Mercedes has always been a softer car. When you're talking about the AMG models, and that, this is a different story. They're all hard. But generally on the normal C-Classes, A-Classes, I don't know, Mercedes just have softer rides, in my opinion, and I've driven quite a few of them. One thing that people really complained about in the old C-Class was, you know, it doesn't come close to the BMW 3 Series in terms of driving dynamics. It isn't as involving to drive, and that's 100% correct. However, the new one is so much better. It's got a 7-speed gearbox. I think it's the 5th generation of the 7-speed G-Tronic, and it's actually good for once. Can you believe it? It's got paddle shifters and they work really well. It's actually really responsive. I'd still say the ZF 8-speed in the BMW is better because, I mean, it's a ZF 8-speed. It's a fantastic gearbox, but from what this car's gearbox was to what it is now is leaps and bounds and worlds and universes ahead of what it was. It's a legitimately good and responsive gearbox now. Like, honestly, I'd say the ZF 8-speed is like a 9 out of 10. This is about an 8 out of 10. It's really, really on par. This car does feel pretty light on its feet. I would say there is slightly more body roll in the corners in this car compared to the BMW. The chassis in the Beamer feels a little bit better. It's a little bit better put together, especially when you're driving a little bit more spiritedly. It gives you more confidence to drive. Saying that, this car is very good also, but the Beamer is just a little bit better when it comes to that spirited driving, you know, characteristics. This car really sounds more refined and more quiet than the BMW does. I have to mention that this car does not have a sunroof, but the BMW does, and that does add a little bit more noise in the car. But I've driven about 3 or 4 others of these C-classes with sunroofs. I've driven on 2 with panoramic roofs also, and they still sound more quiet than the BMWs. It's just more refined. It's just quieter. What can I say? We've driven the 2, both are pretty good. Let's get back to the Automotive Life headquarters and finish up this video, shall we? So we've had a look at the exteriors, the interiors. We've driven both of them, and now we're back. And now I guess you're waiting for the verdict, aren't you? Well, I'm going to give you kind of an open answer, because which one would I choose? Which one do I think is better? Well, they're both great. You know, you can't go wrong with any one. Personally, you know, different variants is what I would choose. I like both of them. If you gave me the choice between a C43 and a BMW M, well, it's not an M340i here yet, it's just a 340i. If you gave me the choice between those two, I'd take the 340i because I like rear wheel drive. If you gave me the choice between a C63 and, you know, a M4 or M3, I'd take the C63. I like it more. But the normal ones is tricky. Which one would you take? You know, they're both good cars. They're both quite similar. They do the same thing. Which one would I take personally? I don't know, because they're both great. I think if I had to choose one, I'd probably go for the C-Class, because I feel it is just more refined, and they really bridged that gap between the two. As in the old shape, this really was not as good of a driver's car as it is. And this was always a good driver's car. It's a BMW. So that bridge, they've closed the gap quite a lot. This car, you get pretty good driver capabilities out of it, and good refinement also. The BMW is not as refined, I feel. So for those reasons, I'd probably go for the C-Class. But like I said, you know, you have your own opinion. Well, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and stay tuned for more.